You're watching the Stories That Scare channel. There is no turning back now.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
3 more true horror stories. Those aren't my kids. Hey, everybody. I'm glad y'all stopped by. There are few things more terrifying than realizing something isn't where it's supposed to be. A door left open, footsteps in an empty house, a voice calling your name when no one else is home. But for parents, there may be one fear that's even worse. Looking at your own child and suddenly realizing something feels wrong. Maybe it's the way they're smiling, the way they're talking, or the way they seem to know things they shouldn't. At first, you convince yourself you're imagining it. They're just tired, you're just stressed. But then they say something or do something that leaves only one horrifying thought echoing through your mind. Those aren't my kids. Tonight, I've gathered 3 stories from people who experienced exactly that. Whether these stories are true, I'll let y'all decide. Story 1. The School Bus. My daughter Emily was 7 years old. Every afternoon, I'd wait for her at the neighborhood bus stop. The routine never changed. The bus arrived at 3:42. The doors folded open. Emily would hop down the steps, wave excitedly, and run straight into my arms. One Thursday, everything started exactly the same. The yellow bus pulled up. The stop sign swung out. The doors hissed open. Emily stepped off the bus, pink backpack, purple shoes, blue jacket. Everything looked normal. She smiled. "Hi, Daddy." I smiled back. "Hey, sweetheart." She climbed into the back seat, buckled herself in, then quietly stared out the window. I thought she was just tired. The bus driver suddenly leaned out the window. "Sir," I looked up. "You forgot your daughter," I laughed. "What?" He pointed toward the bus. Still standing in the doorway, holding the handrail, was Emily. Same backpack, same jacket, same purple shoes. She looked terrified. "Daddy, who's sitting in your car?" Standing in the doorway, holding the handrail, was Emily. Same backpack, same jacket, same purple shoes. She looked terrified. "Daddy, who's sitting in your car?" Every hair on my arm stood up. I slowly turned toward the back seat. The little girl I'd buckled in was still staring out the window, perfectly still. She hadn't moved. She hadn't spoken. I looked back at the bus. The real Emily was crying. "Daddy, please." The girl in my back seat slowly turned her head. Not all at once, just very slowly, until she was looking directly at me through the rearview mirror. She smiled. It wasn't Emily's smile. It was too wide, too deliberate. Then, without moving her lips, I heard a voice. "You picked the wrong one." I yanked the rear door open. The seat was empty. The buckle was still latched, but there was no little girl. Nothing. The bus driver grabbed Emily's hand and hurried her toward me. She wrapped her arms around my waist, sobbing. I looked back inside the car one last time. On the seat, where the other girl had been sitting, was a child's drawing. It showed me, holding hands with 2 identical little girls. One was smiling. The other had no face. I never told Emily what happened. A few weeks later, she was coloring at the kitchen table when she asked, "Daddy, remember that other girl?" My heart stopped. I nodded. She kept coloring. Without looking up, she quietly said, "I'm glad she liked you." Maybe children notice things adults convince themselves aren't real. Maybe they see things we've forgotten how to see. Let's move on to story number 2. This next story happened during what should have been the happiest day of a little boy's year, his 8th birthday. The older I get, the more I wonder if children are born seeing things the rest of us can't. Or maybe whatever was sitting in the back of my car was hoping I'd stop paying attention. Let's move on to story number 2. Story 2. One extra child. My son Tyler had just turned 8. Like most kids his age, he wanted a backyard birthday party. Pizza, cake, water balloons, a bounce house. About a dozen neighborhood kids showed up. Parents dropped them off, stayed for a few minutes, then headed home. Everything was perfect. The kids laughed, ran through the sprinklers, played tag until the sun started setting. My wife spent most of the afternoon taking pictures. Hundreds of them. That night, after Tyler had gone to bed, we sat on the couch looking through the photos. The first few were exactly what you'd expect. Kids eating cake, opening presents, jumping in the bounce house. Then my wife stopped scrolling. "Who's that?" I looked closer. Standing near the fence was a little boy, about Tyler's age. Blonde hair, red t-shirt, khaki shorts. Neither of us recognized him. "Maybe one of the neighbors." She kept scrolling. There he was again, standing behind the picnic table. The next picture, he was beside the bounce house. Then, near the swings, he appeared in every single photograph, always watching, never smiling. The strange part, neither of us remembered seeing him all day. The next morning, I called every parent. "Hey, quick question, was there a little blonde boy in a red shirt at the party yesterday?" Every answer was the same. No. My wife checked the guest list. 12 invitations, 12 children. Every child had been accounted for. There wasn't an extra kid. That afternoon, Tyler walked into the living room while we were looking at the pictures again. He pointed at the blonde boy. "Oh, that's Oliver." My wife frowned. "Who's Oliver?" "My friend." "We've never met an Oliver." Tyler looked confused. "Sure you have. He was here yesterday. He stayed until everybody left." I felt a chill. "What did you two do?" Tyler shrugged. "We played hide and seek." My wife asked, "Where did he hide?" Tyler smiled. "You couldn't see him." That answer sat with us for the rest of the day. A week later, we printed one of the birthday pictures. The blonde boy was gone. Every photograph now showed only the children we'd invited. Except one. The final picture my wife took before everyone went home. Tyler was standing alone, waving toward the side yard. If you zoomed in, just beyond the fence, you could barely make out a small hand waving back. Photographs are strange things. Sometimes they capture memories. Sometimes they capture moments we'd forgotten. And every once in a while, they capture someone who was never supposed to be there. Our final story begins at a neighborhood playground, where a grandmother looked away for only a few seconds and realized there were suddenly two grandsons. The strange thing about stories like these is they almost always begin with someone looking away for just a few seconds. Sometimes that's all it takes. Let's move on to our final story. Story 3, The Playground. Every Wednesday, I watched my grandson, Noah. He was 6 years old, full of energy. His favorite place in the world was the neighborhood playground. He'd spend hours climbing, sliding, swinging, making friends with every child he met. One afternoon, I sat on a nearby bench while Noah played pirates with a few other boys. Every few minutes, he'd wave. I'd wave back. It was our little routine. Around 5 o'clock, my phone rang. It was my daughter. "Everything okay?" "Yep." We talked for maybe 30 seconds. When I hung up, I looked toward the playground. Noah was standing at the top of the slide, smiling. He waved. I smiled and waved back. Then, a little voice spoke beside me. "Grandma?" I nearly jumped. I looked to my right. Standing beside the bench was Noah. Same blue t-shirt, same dinosaur sneakers, same baseball cap. He reached for my hand. "Can we go home now?" My heart stopped. I looked back toward the playground. The other Noah was still standing at the top of the slide, watching us. He slowly raised one hand and waved again. The little boy beside me squeezed my hand tighter. Without looking at the playground, he whispered, "Don't wave back." I stared at him. "What?" His voice trembled. "That's why he keeps coming." A cold feeling settled over me. I looked back toward the slide. The other Noah hadn't moved. He was still smiling, still waiting. One of the other children ran right past him, as if he wasn't even there. No one acknowledged him. No one looked in his direction. I took the Noah beside me and started walking toward the parking lot. Halfway there, I couldn't help myself. I looked back one last time. The slide was empty. Noah tugged on my sleeve. "Grandma, I told you not to look." We got into the car, locked the doors. Neither of us spoke during the drive home. That evening, my daughter asked Noah, "What did you do at the park today?" He shrugged. "I played With who? The other me. The room fell silent. My daughter laughed nervously. What other you? Noah answered so casually, as though everyone should already know. The one who's still waiting at the playground. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I drove past the park on my way to the grocery store. It was completely empty, except at the top of the slide, a little boy in a blue t-shirt slowly raised his hand and waved. Maybe that's why children sometimes insist, "That's not my mom. That's not my dad." Or, "Those aren't my kids." Maybe they notice the difference before we ever do. If you enjoyed these stories, let me know which one disturbed you the most. Was it the school bus, one extra child, or the playground? And tell me, if someone you loved walked through your front door, would you know with absolute certainty that they were really them? I'd love to read your answers in the comments. Who knows, your story might inspire a future episode of Stories That Scare. Keep the fires burning, and as always, I'll tell the stories if you'll stay scared.